Welcome back to Civil Defiance. Tonight we look at the filthiest corner of the modern economy, the misery market. We are not talking about simple, honest commerce. We are talking about the financialization of human suffering. This is the market where the greatest tragedies of life, sickness, crippling debt, incurable disease, and death itself are transformed from human events into guaranteed, reliable profit centers for the Uni-Party's corporate patrons. My thesis is unforgiving. The system does not treat human suffering, it extracts it. The establishment is incentivized not to cure disease, but to manage it indefinitely, not to ease grief, but to exploit it while the victim is most vulnerable. The stability of entire sectors, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, insurance, and the funeral industry depends on the perpetual monetization of human pain. To argue this grim reality, I have two guests, Dr. Cora Vance, a healthcare economist who has mapped the financial incentive structures of the suffering industries, and Marcia Lynch, a former industry regulator who knows exactly where the legal exploitation begins. Dr. Vance, let's start with the central ethical violation, the commodification of chronic disease. Is it not true that a cure for a major disease is financially disastrous for the pharmaceutical and managed care sectors, while a permanent treatment is a guaranteed annuity for decades? That is precisely correct, Otto, and it is the financial logic that governs the entire sector. A permanent cure has a high upfront return, but then the revenue stream dies. A treatment for a chronic condition, diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers that requires daily medication, periodic high-cost interventions, and continuous insurance overhead creates an indefinite revenue stream. It creates a stable, captive market dependent entirely on the product. From a purely financial standpoint, the ideal consumer for the Uni-Party's corporate interests is not a healthy person, but a person with managed lifelong illness. We see evidence of this in research funding priorities, which heavily favor symptom management over radical curative breakthroughs. The Uni-Party elite allow the regulatory capture of these industries because chronic suffering translates directly into stable, long-term dividends. Your pain is someone else's blue chip stock. Marcia, you've regulated the end-of-life industries where grief is the primary product. The funeral industry, the legal costs of probate, the predatory pricing of gravestones. Is this just supply and demand? Or is it a calculated exploitation of a family's vulnerability, knowing they cannot haggle over the price of their dignity?
It is a calculated exploitation of emotional incapacity. The funeral industry operates at the precise moment a family is least capable of rational financial decision-making. They use shame, time pressure, and the cultural expectation of lavish expense to push high-margin services, often obscuring the true, often cheaper, statutory requirements. The laws designed to protect the consumer, like mandatory price lists, are often obfuscated or introduced only when the family is already emotionally invested in an expensive package. Furthermore, the Uni-Party allows these costs to rise exponentially, turning death into an event so financially crippling that it often forces families into debt just to mourn. This debt becomes a reliable, high-interest asset for the financial firms that underwrite the funeral homes. Grief is not merely a feeling. It is a financial opportunity for the few to profit from the mandatory, predictable tragedy of the many. The cost of a dignified farewell is a direct tax on your sorrow.
Dr. Vance, let's talk about the final betrayal, medical debt. A patient survives a catastrophic event only to face financial ruin. The system is designed to grant life but demand the total destruction of the patient's financial future. Is this not the Uni-Party's greatest display of cruelty, ensuring that survival itself is a punishment? It is the system's genius, Otto. Medical debt serves a dual function for the Uni-Party. First, it transfers wealth from the individual To the managed care, insurance, and billing industries, it is a massive annual economic siphon. Second, it is a tool of social control. A person crippled by medical debt is a person who cannot afford to dissent, organize, or challenge the political system. They are perpetually compliant, focused only on servicing their debt and maintaining employment, no matter how exploitative. The threat of debt keeps the worker in line. Survival is not a right, it is a liability that the Uni-Party can leverage to guarantee compliance. Marcia, let's dissect the insurance paradox. We are forced to buy insurance to protect against suffering, yet the insurance companies thrive by systematically denying care, prolonging approval processes, and fighting payments until the victim is too exhausted to continue. Is the true business of the insurer not risk management, but profit extraction from delay and denial?
The business is delay and denial, Otto, and it is entirely by design, protected by the Uni-Party's regulatory structure. The longer an insurance company holds on to a premium payment before paying out a claim, the more interest and investment income they earn. Their profit motive is directly tied to the friction they create in the system. The complex labyrinthine approval process, the prior authorization hell, is not a check against fraud. It is a tool of attrition. They rely on the fact that a sick, exhausted, or grieving individual lacks the energy, the time, or the legal knowledge to fight the denial. The denial is often just the first step in a calculated war of attrition designed to make the claimant give up. The Uni-Party allows this because these massive insurance companies are not just financial contributors, they are central to the stability of the current economic model. They are the gatekeepers of necessary suffering.
Dr. Vance, let's talk about the specific financial products built around suffering, debt collection, and asset stripping. The moment a debt is incurred, whether medical, funeral, or housing, it becomes a new commodity traded and sold. This removes any possibility of human empathy from the equation. Is the financialization of debt the ultimate act of making suffering an untouchable, scalable asset? It is the perfect financial distillation of human pain, Otto. When debt is bundled and sold as an asset-backed security, the underlying human story, the cancer diagnosis, the premature death, is completely removed. The transaction becomes morally sterile. The buyer is a hedge fund, motivated only by the probability of extraction, not the humanity of the debtor. This guarantees that the debt collection process will be mercilessly efficient. The Uni-Party supports this because it provides massive liquidity to the healthcare sector and funnels predictable returns to the financial elite. It is a self-licking ice cream cone of misery. The suffering that creates the debt is necessary to power the financial markets that feed the Uni-Party. This system ensures that even if you die, your debt lives on, serving as a lucrative asset for someone else.
This conversation on the financialization of human suffering is exactly the kind of line-walking debate we need on civil defiance. We are here to challenge boundaries and spark real debate. If this episode, or any of our volatile topics, has resonated with you, or if there's a deeply uncomfortable, highly controversial subject you think we should tackle next on civil defiance, we want to hear it. Don't be afraid of the heat. Give us the topics the established media won't touch. You can send your suggestions through the submission link on our website, https://www.google.com/search civildefiance.com, or tag us on social media using Xiao Civil Defiance topics. Before we return to Otto's final dissection, a quick but necessary message. If you are listening to this episode and want to ensure you never miss our next act of civil defiance, make sure you are subscribed and following our channel on Spotify. Simply search for Civil Defiance and hit that follow button. Your subscription is the fuel for our defiance. Now, back to Otto.
Marcia, let's return to the specific legal cruelty that the Uni-Party allows. The concept of dignity in death has been completely eroded by financial predators. The cost of a simple burial or cremation is astronomical. Why is there no political will to regulate these costs and ensure a non-exploitative, universal minimum standard for mourning?
Because the high cost of dignified death serves a crucial function for the Uni-Party. It ensures that the stigma of poverty persists even beyond the grave. The high cost of a funeral is a forced social compliance mechanism. Families are forced to take on debt or hold humiliating public fundraisers to avoid the shame of a pauper's grave. This reinforces the capitalist moral narrative. Your worth is defined by your spending, even in death. The Uni-Party refuses to regulate the prices because the industries, the funeral homes, the cemeteries, the casket manufacturers, are powerful local political forces, often operating as monopolies or semi-monopolies with deep lobbying pockets. They successfully argue that regulation interferes with sacred tradition or consumer choice, when in reality, they are simply protecting their massive, exploitative margins. Dignity is a commodity, and it's priced intentionally out of reach for the majority.
Dr. Vance, let's discuss the false urgency created by the medical system, the high cost of drugs, the sudden aggressive billing, the refusal to disclose pricing. Is this not a deliberate strategy to prevent the patient from exercising any rational choice, effectively holding their health hostage for maximum extraction? It is pure, unadulterated hostage economics, Otto. The lack of price transparency in healthcare is the Uni-Party's most powerful defensive mechanism. You are legally required to accept treatment in an emergency, but you have zero information about the cost until the bill arrives months later. This allows the system to charge arbitrary, inflated prices far exceeding the true cost of service. The profit motive is maximized by the patient's physical inability to negotiate. The sickest, most vulnerable patients are the most profitable. Furthermore, the Uni-Party allows surprise billing and aggressive billing practices because the financial institutions and collection agencies are an integral part of the political economic cycle. They need the steady stream of medical debt to maintain their revenue. Health is not a priority. Maximizing the transaction volume around health crises is the priority. So the civil defiance here is a refusal to submit to the financialization of our inevitable suffering. It's a demand to decouple essential human experiences, health, illness, and mourning, from the profit motive. But how do you fight a system that uses emotional blackmail as its primary business strategy?
You fight it with radical transparency and preemptive organization. The system relies on the victim being alone, confused, and vulnerable. The defiance must be collective. Standardized price disclosures, mandatory non-profit funeral options, and legal protections that make debt collection from health crises morally and legally toxic. We must strip the Uni-Party's clients of their ability to profit from the necessary tragedy of the human condition.
Dr. Vance, let's address the weaponization of hope, particularly in the pharmaceutical market. The industry pushes drugs with marginal benefits at astronomical costs, often preying on people with terminal diagnoses. Is the promise of a few extra months of life, regardless of quality, not the ultimate Uni-Party extortion?
It is the cruelest form of financial exploitation, Otto. When faced with a terminal diagnosis, a patient's financial rationality disappears. They will sell their home, bankrupt their family, and exhaust every resource for a slight statistical probability of prolonged life. The Uni-Party's corporate interests exploit this desperation ruthlessly. They price these marginal drugs not based on cost of production, but on the maximum emotional leverage they have over a terrified individual. The regulatory environment controlled by the Uni-Party allows this pricing because it creates a profitable precedent. The higher the price for hope, the more financial extraction is considered normal. The industry's lobbying ensures that the government does not negotiate these prices, guaranteeing the maximum flow of wealth from the sick and dying to the corporate elite. They don't sell medicine, they sell exploitable desperation.
Marcia, we talk about civil defiance. What is the most tangible, accessible act of defiance against the financialization of death that every citizen can take right now to disrupt the funeral industry's racket?
The greatest defiance is pre-planning and simplicity. By pre-planning, you neutralize the element of emotional coercion. More importantly, citizens must use and demand direct cremation or simple burial services. By rejecting the high-cost rituals, the expensive caskets, the costly embalming, the unnecessary viewing ceremonies, they directly attack the high-margin products that fund the industry's political power. The act of choosing simplicity is a declaration that dignity is inherent, not purchasable, thus starving the misery market of its profits.
So the fight against the financialization of suffering is a fight for rationality in the face of emotional crisis. It is a demand that society places a moral flaw beneath human tragedy, a flaw that the Uni-Party has systematically removed to maximize profit. The ultimate shame of the current system is that it turns life's worst moments into someone else's best business opportunity. Dr. Vance, Marcia, you have completed the grim inventory of the misery market. You have shown how the Uni-Party structures the economy to ensure that the inevitable tragedies of life are not a drain on society, but a reliable, lucrative asset stream for the elite. My final verdict on the financialization of grief and human suffering is that it is the ultimate moral corruption, a system so cynical that it cannot be fixed, only dismantled. The core of this defiance must be a collective rejection of the premise that grief is a transaction. Dr. Vance, if the system cannot be fixed, what is the revolutionary economic shift required to defeat the misery market? The shift must be to decouple health from financial risk. It means declaring that healthcare is an infrastructure utility, not a market commodity. Only by removing the catastrophic, bankrupting cost of health crises can we starve the insurance, debt collection, and opaque billing industries that feed the Uni-Party. The financialization of suffering dies when the threat of financial ruin is removed from a diagnosis. Marcia, what is the greatest psychological cost to a society that tolerates this constant systematic exploitation of its most vulnerable moments?
The greatest cost is the loss of trust in humanity itself. When every experience, from birth to death, is treated as a profit opportunity, the citizen learns that compassion is a lie, and vulnerability is a weakness that will be exploited. This destroys social cohesion and breeds cynicism. The civil defiance here is a battle to reclaim fundamental human empathy from the cold calculus of the market.
Dr. Vance, Marcia, thank you for exposing the true price of pain in the economy built by the Uni-Party. Before we conclude, a final necessary message. If this episode or any of our defiant conversations has resonated with you and you want to ensure you never miss our next act of civil defiance, you must subscribe and follow our channel on Spotify. Simply search for Civil Defiance and hit that follow button. Your subscription is the fuel for our ongoing defiance. To our listeners, be skeptical of any entity that offers hope at a ruinous price. Question the motives behind the cost of survival. Your defiance begins with refusing to let your grief be sold.